had actually driven into the garage, and because there's a 30-minute kind of grace period for it, that they would be able then to just walk the children up to the space. But there's also possibilities of also perhaps having a turnaround or something like that. That's still being under discussion. In terms of hours of operations, we would start at 8 o'clock with before care, and then it would run. Our services would run until 6 p.m. So we would be open until 6 p.m. for parents who may need a little bit of aftercare. What was the other question?
The playground location.
The playground. There's a beautiful playground that is right adjacent to the Child Development Center. It has great space. I love it's one of those cushy surfaces for the and one of the great things which we are really very happy about is that all of the classroom space actually has access to the outdoors. So you have indoor and outdoor space adjacent to the classroom, which is quite unique and is truly ideal to be able to.
Great. Well, I can get your email address and send you the other specific questions, but mainly just thank you for coming. And if the AMC can be helpful to you in any way, or if you have questions as you're progressing with your plans, please do reach out to us.
Great, and we'll be in touch as negotiations progress and as things kind of start to fall into place, so you can be informed and you can inform the whole community as well.
Great. Thank you.
Do you have any questions from the commissioners still?
No.
Okay, Mr. Kennedy. Yes.
I will find out. Ask your second question. I will get it for you.
10,000 kids live outside of the district. They eligible?
Raul.
Okay. Ms. Dell.
I just have a question. When you started talking about four-year-olds, 3-year-old program,
Yep.
and that's attached to the school system. So that program you're talking about, that's just strictly child care.
Do you want to talk?
It is not daycare. We are a CPO, a community-based organization that has been designated by OSCE as a high-quality early childhood education provider. So we actually are a full-service preschool. Actually, we're a language immersion preschool. So our students are getting kindergarten readiness.
Why would you issue instead of asking the schools to provide? I see the need for daycare. Kids are doing it, but why is this like a charter school?
So we consider all learning from birth to 5 early care and education. So we don't use the term daycare. It's early learning, and so what?
How does it fit in, say, the Lafayette School, how would it
So-
fit in
So it's a great question. So in the District of Columbia, we have a 3-sector universal pre-K program, which means we have public charter schools, DCPS, and community-based organizations, which have to be licensed child development facilities that meet certain high-quality standards. So Communikids is part of the universal pre-K program. Families go there, no charge to them. They come from 8 to 3, or they have to serve them 6.5 hours a day.
I just have one other question.
Yeah.
If you're a teacher in the school system, is it pre-K, is it and then also have to have potentially a certificate of some sort. And you're saying your program, all they will be and not until 2025 is the associate.
Oh.
So how does that fit?
Thank you.
For
One of the high-quality standards that they have to meet is, in the pre-K program, is they have to have bachelor-level teachers, and they have to have an assistant teacher with an associate's degree. So if you're receiving the uniform per-student funding formula for the pre-K program in a community-based organization, you have to meet these higher standards. You have to pay those teachers on parity with DCPS teacher salaries. Exactly. And they came in last year. You had wait list.
Yes.
We expanded this year. We have 26 community-based organizations providing universal pre-K in our community-based sector.
Are you taking fund, I can see you, I'm sorry, but, are you taking funds from the public school to fund a private school?
No. They are private businesses, so that's great. I'm glad that you, that's an important point, but they are taking public funds that come to the Division of Early Learning at OSSI that are actually designated to support this third sector. So we know that many families who need the universal pre-K also need wraparound all-day care, and they also need care all day, all year. So they need full day, full year. So the three-sector system really is part of our parent choice, making sure that families have, can select the type of care that best meets their need and their child's need. So a lot of our Head Start programs, our other early Head Start programs, they also provide this support. So they get some federal dollars, they get some from us, and they get some from our subsidy. So we blend the funding together. Thank you for the questions.
Juanita, did you have one?
I just wanted to add that some of the program staff will be working with our early childhood education department, our students who are working their master's degrees, and vaccine staff in that program.
Any other questions? Would you just mind giving us an email or a contact if people do have more questions at
Yes,
office?
and I have business cards. So
Okay,
I can
great.
leave those too.
Okay, cool. That's fine then.
Okay, I'll give those. You want to say something? Okay. I was going to say, it's for a family of 4 in the District of Columbia. The federal poverty level is $25,100. So 250% of that, if I do my math right, I think is $62,750. Families can come into the subsidy program up to 250% of poverty, and they can stay in the subsidy program up to 300% of poverty. But I think the mayor, we continue with all of our district agencies and our partners to look at ways to make care more affordable, which is part of why the district-owned buildings,
Mhm.
if that can reduce the cost to a private operator, they can bring tuition costs down for families and make it more affordable for all families.
Thank you so much for bringing
Thank you
that
so
again.
much for
Yeah,
being
Ms.
here.
Levere.
Thank you all.
Now we're going to go back in the agenda, and I'm going to invite MPD down to give us a bit of an update and answer some questions that they've gotten from some commissioners lately. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth.
Yes, please.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Sorry to be delayed. Had a lot of things going on today. MPD accident, suspicious package. So we had to clear that up. But I'm here to answer any questions you guys may have.
Did you have some stuff?
Yeah, so I think it would be great to get a general update on anything we should know about trends in crime in our area. But in particular, so I've been hearing from a lot of constituents at the 3003 Van Ness building. I know there was recently a meeting between the Tenant Association and MPD about some specific concerns of folks getting into the building who shouldn't, following residents and so forth. I was just hoping you could kind of update us on any particular issues you're seeing in this area and anything we should be aware of or encouraging residents to do
Okay.
to ensure safety.
Okay, so we had a meeting with 3003 Van Ness, and so the people are coming in, maybe they're leaving the doors open, or somebody that lives there goes walking in it and the door is really slow to close, and so maybe people are drifting in. But the calls for service for the last year were like 50, mostly domestic disturbances or disorderlies. So what we've discussed is going to their next meeting and actually doing some safety training for the residents of the building. And we also discussed them themselves taking ownership of their building and creating a orange hat per se, where the residents of the building would patrol the buildings, because also the laundromat, they saying suspicious people in the laundromat, So if they developed a little Orange Hat Patrol, we would try to dedicate an officer to walk with them. So those are the things we discussed during that meeting.
Okay. Have you seen an actual uptick compared to recent months or last year?
No,
It's
ma'am.
easy for me sometimes to get that impression if you're hearing a lot, right?
Right.
But
No, ma'am. The 203, theft for models. So, and theft for models plagued the entire District of Columbia. But, and especially around here, because of UDC and because of all the parking, theft for models are high around here. But other than that, there's no uptick in crime in 203.
Okay. Do you have any stats that you want to share with us right now?
I have no stats.
Okay.
Well, so everybody know about mpdc.gov, where you can go online and get all the stats that you need
Okay.
for anywhere in the District of Columbia.
Okay. And that the web address again? Would you say that?
mpdc.gov. Okay.
Say that again? What's the address?
mpdc.dc.gov. You can put your address in, run your address. It'll give you all the crime stats, or the crimes that occurred around your address, and you can run it for however long you want it, a year, a month, a week, a day. So, and plus on our list servers, how many is on a list server? Nobody? Because we give daily crime stats on our list server too. And that's 2D at yahoo.com. Is that how it is, 2D? Sir, do you know?
I don't know.
Oh,
the
okay,
address.
2D Yahoo groups.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a
And you
Yahoo
can get
group.
all the lockups in 2D, all the crimes that occurred for the entire day. We post it daily.
Okay.
Can I ask you both to introduce yourselves, if you don't mind?
Yes, I thought I did. I'm sorry if I didn't. I'm Sergeant Corinne Hughes. Hughes. I actually used to be the PSA lieutenant,
Yes.
and yeah, and I retired and came back as a sergeant. So.
I'm Officer William McGovern, and I'm assigned to KSA 203, my area.
So just two quick questions for you. Number one, if residents of other buildings have safety concerns and would like to partner with MPD on an Orange Hat program, who should they contact? And my other question is, I saw this past weekend an MPD tent outside the Van Ness Metro. Didn't have a chance to go over there. What was that about?
That was a meet and greet
Okay.
that our lieutenant is Valerie Stewart, that she put together. It was a meet and greet, 203 officers.
I
Yes.
thought you might have something to do with it.
So if you want to create an Orange Hat Patrol, within your building, we can't promise to be there all the time, but when we can, we will be. You can contact me, or you can contact Lieutenant Valerie Stewart, and you can contact anybody that works in the MPD Police Department by their first name, last name at dc.gov. Okay? Yeah, let me spell my first name correctly. Because if you don't get it correct, you won't get to me. It's Corinne. 1 R, 2 N's. And you could just, you can email me, and when we have officers available, they will walk with you and meet with you to, go through and patrol your building.
So, looking to a specific issue that came up actually before you arrived, and it has to do with the drop-off area here on Connecticut Avenue at VZ. We've talked a little bit about people utilizing it as a drop-off space for the metro, and it's not supposed to be one. I was wondering if you could speak to that, and whether there's any enforcement actions or the best way to sort of ensure pedestrian safety. And I don't know if Juanita, you have anything more to add on that.
Right. University is finding it's becoming very congested with people either dropping off or picking up, waiting there for get off the metro, or
I mean, we can definitely do enforcement there. And just remember that once we do enforcement, then everybody gets a ticket. I'm just gonna throw that out there to you. But I'm gonna let McGovern answer that because, you know, I'm old, I don't get you out tickets.
Yeah, we can give more special attention. I wasn't aware that it was that much of a.
No, I would say it does need to be balanced with if the Kissing Ride is closed, we don't actually want to encourage people to stop on Connecticut Avenue either to let people off at the Metro. That's gonna lead to another set of problems, so.
I think that we need to, and we'll be discussing this a bit
Yeah.
more about the Kiss and Ride, but this isn't the appropriate use of that roundabout either. Like, I understand not wanting to have people in Connecticut, but,
Right, I just think we need a more holistic
Sure.
recommendation to folks.
Okay.
Because all we're gonna do is move the problem from one place with this recommendation
true.
to somebody else,
Mhm.
to Connecticut,
Mhm.
so.
But we'll discuss a bit more on that Kiss and Ride, and so, and then I guess we'll need, if we could work with the MPD and we can talk about
Right,
potential.
so if you give us a particular time, like a 2-hour window,
Mhm.
we can do enforcement. You know, we can't do it all day, but
Mhm.
if you give me a particular 2-hour window,
Okay.
we can do enforcement there.
Okay. We'll email you directly about that.
Okay.
Especially after we discuss a little bit more later in this meeting of the holistic view of the traffic issue there.
And so I'd like to invite you to our meeting, our community campus task force next week. And
Sure.
we can speak about it then as well.
Okay, sure. Did you get my email address? Okay.
Do you have
Any other questions?
Questions from the community for the sergeant?
Well, I appreciate your time.
Great, thanks
We
for
appreciate
coming.
yours.
Thank you very much.
Thank
You guys have a great evening.
Thank you.
And be
Thank you.
safe, please. All right.
Okay, we are going to move back on to, we're on the 8th item on our agenda. This is a discussion of the DC Public Library on the move of the Washingtonia collection to 4340 Connecticut Avenue. I believe Director Reyes Gavilan, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, if you just want to talk a little bit, I think we would all appreciate from an overview of what the collection is, why you need to move it, and then we can go in and have just a discussion on some of the issues that have been flagged for you in the community. But if you just want to start out on kind of like the reasons for the move and what the
Absolutely.
collection is.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good evening. Hi, folks. I'm Richard Reyes Gavilan. I'm the Executive Director of the DC Public Library. I hope that you all have had a chance to enjoy the new Cleveland Park Library that opened up on Saturday. It is just another spectacular building in a line of relentlessly spectacular destinations for learning here. And we're so proud to have that in the Cleveland Park, Woodley Park, Van Ness community. So enjoy. I'm here tonight to talk about the space that was recently vacated. As you all know, the library had an interim facility, the small retail space at 4340 Connecticut Avenue. And that space has since been vacated as we accelerated the process by which we could open up the new library. What we're planning to do now is for the next year to move the library's somewhat nomadic special collection, Washingtoniana, to that space. For those of you who know Washingtoniana, it is a wonderful collection of photographs, ephemeral collections, genealogical materials, newspapers, all sorts of wonderful things that the community uses, students, researchers, genealogists, local history buffs. This year the collection has been used very much because of all the activity surrounding DC 1968, which is of course the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King. If you look at all the photographs that have appeared in the Washington Post or Washingtonian Magazine or the City Paper, so much of what you'll see credited at the bottom is Washingtoniana. So it's a well-used collection. And so what we're proposing is moving that collection to the space at Van Ness. What we like about it is that there is, for whatever reason, a somewhat of a concentration of local history enthusiasts who use our Washingtoniana collection, who are located in this part of the city. So our plan is to move it there. It would be a publicly accessible space. Things like the Washington Evening Star Photo Collection, which the DC Public Library is the sole owner of that collection, the DC Historical Image Collection, our vertical files, our city directories, historic DC newspaper microfilm, again, some genealogical material, and we would do some semblance of programming. Of course, it's a very small space. It's 3,000 square feet, so it's not what we will be able to do in the MLK library when it reopens, but we will be able to work with the community on some of the programming that we're really famous for, like our house history workshops for people who want to study their homes. Some school groups would be able to come in to learn how to do primary research material. Small seminars around Know Your Neighborhood. We could partner with any organization, frankly, around here to talk about, well, what's the history of NS? What are the materials that we have here that support that, the study of the neighborhood here? And it is, again, it is a small cultural, I think, gem, at least in the for a short period of time. What we're trying to do is to extend a lease that we currently have, or at least the city's Department of General Services that manages the library's leases has with UDC. What we're looking to do is extend that lease through the end of that lease, which is July of 2019, at which point we would say so long, thanks for having us, and we would begin the process of slowly moving back into the MLK library as that continues its modernization, and hopefully open up MLK on time in mid-2020. So in just a couple of minutes, that's what we're proposing on doing. I have more information about Washingtoniana if anybody wants to know. And in terms of our hours of service, we would be open roughly about 40 hours a week. Again, it's a small collection. It's a service that has a faithful usership, but not the same numbers that would go into a branch library, for example. But we would be open roughly business hours. We would have, when we're not open, we're doing ongoing digitization that we're adding to our large Dig DC collection, which is our digitized library material, photographs, plats, other things of that nature. But it is going to be open to the public. It is a small space, and happy to entertain any questions that you may have or the public.
Okay. I have a few questions. I'll just go and we'll just move them quickly, then I'll open it up to the rest of us up here. So it's going to be open to the public, and you'll for about 40 hours a week, and you are expecting walk-in hours. Is what I...
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. Our researchers are adamant about walk-in hours,
okay.
And what that space will allow us that we have not been able to do in the space where we are currently, which is above the museum, is that we cannot provide those walk-in hours because it's a sort of it's an office building that requires people to be let in. But this space, anybody can walk in at any time for research purposes. Those have not been fully vetted, but it would be some combination of some regular, like a 9 to 5 couple of days, and maybe an 11 to 7 couple of days, maybe every other Saturday. And then again, with the resources that the library has, we would hope to do some other type of community programming, maybe under the loggia that's in that space. So for example, a couple of things that we've been thinking about doing, we're going to have a tech truck online pretty soon where we're going to be doing some minimal emerging technologies out of a truck. Maybe we can park on Connecticut Avenue and do some community build days. We've been talking about doing some community scanning days. Some of you know that we have a service that we launched last year or 2 years ago now, the Memory Lab, where we encourage people to bring in their obsolete or formats that are becoming obsolete, photographs, videotape, floppy disks. You come in, we show you how to use some machinery to transfer all that stuff to the cloud, and it's sort of, we make it fun for people to better store their material, and by doing so, you're doing more for the preservation of DC's history, which is ultimately our goal in that collection.
Now, I know we've talked about this importance of programming, in terms of foot traffic. Could you talk a little bit, and I know you've heard from the community, on the desire to utilize this space for retail?
Yes.
And could you talk a little bit about why this space is appealing to you, why it makes sense in terms of DGS and the lease, and kind of just speak to that?
Yeah, well, there are some very practical reasons. Number one is that the space is already almost fit out for our needs. Because it was serving as a library, we have to swap out some of the shelving to accommodate boxes rather than books, but it is already more or less a library. So there has to be just minimal fit out. There's already a reading room, there's already storage, and there's already a small amount of staff space. So in that regard, it's perfect. And there are no ongoing negotiations that we would have to do. Because the library does not have its own lease authority, the Department of General Services has to go out to the market and begin that process by which it gets, it would secure a lease. And because we're only needing it for a short period of time, it becomes sort of cost prohibitive to go out to the open market at this point to begin doing that. Any space that we were to get now, we would have to look at some interior demolition and some fit out and some build out, and all that time. I've been here for 4 or 5 years, and I've done tons of libraries already and tons of interim spaces, and everything takes a long time. There's just no way. If any of you have done your kitchen, you know that it can take a long time, or a bathroom. It all takes a long amount of time. So practically, it makes a lot of sense for us to stay there because we're there. Secondly, the same reason that the library is a retail shop. We benefit from having exposure to the street. We benefit from having, being near other retail. We benefit from being in lively places. It's no secret that our Cleveland Park Library, which is across the street from all the commerce, sees 250, 300,000 people a year, whereas our Palisades Library, which is not near a ton of commercial and retail, sees maybe half of that. So just speaking as a librarian / businessman, we like a lot of foot traffic for the same reasons that the Gap wants foot traffic or Starbucks wants foot traffic. Mm-hmm. So those are really the two main reasons. But frankly, it's the practical one that for me overrides everything else. That the system is pretty much is in place for the library to just step in over the course of the summer and just pick up and start its services.
Okay. I have one more thing before I give it to my colleagues. We talked about, and I think you made it akin to a kitchen renovation, and those things can take a while. The MLK renovation, it's scheduled to, take about another year or so, right?
Correct.
Suppose that's delayed. Do you have any plans on staying past July 2019? Or?
No, at this point, I understand that, and we've spoken. Van Ness Main Street wants that space. They want to activate it with other types of retail, and I completely respect that. The lease that DGS currently has with UDC ends on July 23rd, 2019. And far be it from me to push. If we're invited to stay, great, we will stay. Otherwise, we've already set in motion what our plan would be to begin mothballing the collection, continue to do a robust outreach around the service, but begin the drum roll around the opening of MLK. So regardless of when MLK opens, frankly, we have no recourse but to leave on July 23rd, and I'm not going to leave kicking and screaming. I want to be a good neighbor throughout the whole process.
And again, when is the MLK branch?
MLK is supposed to reopen mid-2020 at this point. Okay. But because it's such a large building, substantial completion might be earlier, meaning we can begin the move-in process possibly significantly earlier than we can open because of, again, the size of the building. It's not like a Cleveland Park where all you need is maybe a month or a month and a half to do the same thing.
Question?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear about your community programs that you're planning. I think that'll be very useful to the neighborhood. What about exhibits? You have a lot of good photographs and other visual materials. To have an exhibit that maybe rotates or is somewhat permanent, are you going to have space for that? I think that would be an attractive feature for the neighborhood.
Yeah, what we've been talking about, because it is a very small footprint, and we need tables for researchers and tables, and when a researcher comes in, for those of you who've done special collections work, it's not like sitting at one of these desks for your laptop. You typically need a little bit of room on which to spread out documents or photographs or that sort of thing. So we can make better use of the windows for sure by putting reproductions up of things of that nature, or possibly we can leverage the overhang that's there, and possibly during nice weather without wind we might be able to put some stuff on easels. That would have to be sorted through, but I've heard loud and clear that we're being challenged in some ways to activate it, and the library has had a really progressive almost philosophy with its special collections in the past. So right now, for example, some of you may know we've got a great ephemeral collection around the DC punk music scene. And so before we closed the MLK library, we were doing punk music shows that were designed to generate more interest and more donations to the collection. We've got a phenomenal staff. They're very friendly. They're very innovative. And we're always thinking about, we don't take a passive approach where we sort of sit on our hands and wait for researchers to come to us. We really make it a point to make sure that our materials are being used, and so we think about really interesting ways to engage the local community, and I'm sure we will be doing that for the period of time that we're there.
Thank you.
Questions? Questions? Do we have questions from the audience? One? All right, let's do it.
It's very exciting, and I certainly hope that you can have it on your record. I've taken that house hunting, Houston Street, top down, and okay.
Great.
It's a happy place. It's very exciting. But the other thing too is you mentioned memory lane. I was down at and the advertising as though it was going to be there or something, and it turned out it was just going to come on and really house it across town. So if you were to, could you bring a memory lane here and let it stay till July?
The problem with the space, again, it is so small. And having a memory lab station would probably be, we would be giving up more real estate than we frankly had. We do want to do sort of community scanning days, and we do want to bring the memory lab back to Cleveland Park on a rotating basis. I'll be quite honest with you, we would love to do it, and it's not a cost issue, it's really a space issue. Yeah, our plan is to do it regularly, not have a fixed station, and part of what we need to do at the new Cleveland Park Library is monitor the use, because that building is also so busy and there was so much demands for meeting space. We don't want to co-opt any of it for a library program.